Well, good morning, RZR Adventure fans. We are back. I'm going to take a break from my trailer project and get back to what we're supposed to be all about here. We have talked about in the past, we got a water pump issue. So we're going to tackle that today and then see if we can get working on the skid plate. I don't see the skid plate taking too long. That's just going to be drill and tap some holes and throw the skid plate back on. So we may even skip over that part altogether. But for now, we're going to start with the water pump. Alright, so I went and picked this up from the dealer a few days ago. Just now getting to it. What I have here is Polaris part number 1205015. And that is what they said goes on my 2017 RZR 4900. I'm glad I looked at this. I usually like to do that before we start tearing things apart, because when you look under here you can see a couple different screws, but we only need to take this one, and this one out, which is this one, and this one back here, and that'll pop the pump off. Well, since I've got one hand free, figured I'd show you where I'm at. Yep, that's where I'm at. This one on the left is just amazing. That's thanks to that support bar right there. No power tools available. Gosh darn it. Okay, so we've got the little hose off, started loosening this clamp, and this pump, wow, this is a pain in the butt. I finally got it pulled loose. I'm gonna get this hose taken the rest of the way off, the hose that goes up to the radiator, and then hopefully I can get this turned around, because this clamp, the screw for the clamp is literally facing the front of the machine, so there's no way I can get to it here. But I think once I get this off, I can just pull the whole thing out, and I'll be able to get that clamp. I'm going to replace all 3 clamps, and this whole clamp on the little hose is the spring clamp deal, and I've wrenched for a long time, and I freaking hate these things. So we're going to put all new hose clamps on it and fill her up with coolant, but first things first, we gotta get this one clamp off and pull her out of here. So we'll keep going. Alright, we got her out. One thing to remember, we really got to yank on this to get it out. Don't get discouraged. And then I found a seal back here that came out with the pump. It was around the edge. I don't think that came in the box with it. It for sure did not, and it's not on the new pump. So we are minus some parts here. So our take apart and go back together idea was severely wrong. And inside here, past where the seal would run, runs right here, there's a weep hole, and that's where our moisture's been coming from. You can kind of see, just based on the way it is, how wet it is underneath here. It sits in here like this, and you can see just by looking at it where the moisture's been wicking to. So it's been coming from this part, the bottom part, and that would have been coming out the weep hole. Where's it at? Right there on the bottom side. So we definitely have internal failures in the pump. Not terrible where it was really leaking hard, but bad enough to catch it. So we're gonna get it taken care of. But I need to make a phone call and see if we can get that seal. Otherwise we're gonna have to wait for parts again. So hold on. Okay, let's flash forward a few hours. Nobody had that. It's called a filter. It looks more like a gasket to me. I called a few places, and the last place said, yeah, it shows that US 27 Motorsports has one. Well, for those of you who aren't from Michigan, US 27 Motorsports is in St. John's. I live in Standish. That is about a 4.5 hour round trip. So I'm home. And this is part number 5814207. It is literally a $2 circle piece of foam. But it looks better than that one. So we're going to put it together like that. We're going to look at the new pump and see how this fits in. And we're going to clean up the surface on the old pump and get her going back together. I stopped and picked up the hose clamps like I wanted. Some green pre-mixed Parts Master antifreeze. And yeah, let's get going. Okay, so here is the back of the pump with the little foam gasket installed. Be careful and understand that from here on in, from this part on in, you are in the crankcase. So we don't want to leave this open for too long. Basically, it's in the crankcase. It's getting driven by a gear. Everything else that has to do with the water pump is on the outside of here. So we are ready to go back together. I'm going to work backwards. We'll put the top hose on. We're going to bend the top hose out and around, get that on. We'll just put the clamp on loosely and then get the other hoses close, but we have to index this. So I'm going to feel in there for that gear and try and line this up, the little tab here with that gear, so it slides in nice. So I had a little problem getting this indexed in, and this is a tight fit. And every time I would try and realign it, I would have to put this hose on and off the bottom. And I didn't forget, my clamp slid down there, but I've got my pipe clamp down there. I'll bring that up and we'll be able to tighten this all up here in a second. I got all the bolts started. Oh, back to my issue. So I had a hard time getting it indexed. I got it as close as I could. I pushed it in as far as I could, and then I bumped the engine. Now I wasn't sure if this was going to be a good idea or not. Turned out it worked, because I came back and it slid right in. So I don't know if it caught and gave in a little bit, and the put pressure from the hoses kept it pushed in enough where it just indexed itself. I'm assuming that's what happened, because I know it wasn't going in that easy till I bumped it over. So I'm not going to say that's the recommended way to do it. Like I've said in the past, these are not factory instructional videos. This is just how I'm doing it. I got my 3 bolts started by hand. One thing to remember is especially important with these little bolts. When you're putting them into aluminum, you need to back start them, which means you push them in until they can't go anymore, and then you turn them left or counterclockwise until you hear it click or you feel it step down. Okay, that's when you're at the start of your threads, and then start screwing it in. If you do not do this, you might get lucky, but more times than not you're going to cross thread, and you do not want to cross thread aluminum bolts or bolts into the aluminum block. I don't think I need to explain why that's a bad thing. And we've gone over what happens when you over torque things in the front differential on this machine. So this machine has definitely taken me to school and taught me a ton of stuff, or at least reminded me of things. So that's where we're at. We're going to finish the wiggle them. I can turn them in farther, but they're started anyways. We're going to get that tightened down and get the hose clamps clamped, and we're going to figure out how we're going to fill this. Alright, sorry about this, but we were losing daylight, so we're going to top off the coolant tomorrow. But the pump is tightened down. Make sure you get those bolts torqued in just right and tighten up the clamps, and we're ready for some coolant. But his GoPro suck in the dark, so if it gets any later we won't be able to see anything. So we will finish this off tomorrow. Okay, it's the next day. It is bright enough, I guess, with our cloud cover to do some video. We have took the trunk out, moved those little radiator supports back, tipped it back. I got a funnel in there, and I'm going to painstakingly fill the radiator. That's going to be a slow process, but we'll get the radiator topped off, then we'll let it run a little bit. Alright, we got her topped off with coolant, and we got it bled out. We tore all this apart, and I bent the heat shield up so we get some light down in here, because down in here is the bleeder screw. take this panel off. I just put back on. Right up here, in between the exhaust pipes. That's really hot. It's a little 8mm bolt. And you crack that open and let it bleed out with the engine running. Now I did have it nose up partly on the trailer, and I burped it a couple times and ran through a couple heat cycles, and everything was running fine. So just to be sure though, we backed it down, cracked the bleeder screw, fluid came out, or coolant came out right away. Very minimal bubbles. So we've topped off the reservoir tank here now, and it was full, so it has burped out some. So I think we are good to go. I'm going to give that a little bit more, and then we'll run through a couple more heat cycles and see if it draws any more down. But for the most part, we've got good water all the way through. It heats up, fan kicks on at 204. It might see 206, 208, but then it drops right back down to 192. So there's no major air bubbles, nothing slowing everything down. Now I got to put everything back together, which shouldn't be that big a deal. Just a bunch of T40s and the screws for the bump seat, which I'm tempted to take out, but not quite ready yet. We'll see. I'm gonna put that belt back together, run it around a little bit, reassemble the rear. I did take the air box out, which was basically that clamp, and then this clamp from the snorkels. We'll throw that back in, and there's a couple 15mm bolts that hold the air box down in that back frame rail right there. So I will throw this all back together and we'll give it a test run, and she should be good. Well, not quite good, needs a bath. So let's move on. Alright, skid plate's going back on. Got the center bolts in, and right now we are just drilling and tapping new holes because so many of these bolts broke off when we had to drill them out. So we're taking the drill for the tap. We're tapping the hole with the, I think it's a 3/8 inch tap, and then we're using the big old drill bit to countersink it into the plastic so it's not sticking down. So moving right along. We're almost done with this piece, and we'll have the front piece up and going on that one. Alright, we've got the skid plate all on. We had to drill and tap a couple extra holes because the screws had broken. And these front brackets, I know I've said it before when we put the skid plate on, are a pain in the butt, and I am not a fan, but we got them on, got them ready to go. We are ready for Tennessee. Unfortunately for Christopher, it's a daddy-daughter trip, so he's not going, but all we got left to do now is give it a bath and load up to go. It is Sunday afternoon, and we're leaving Friday at about 1 or 2 in the morning, so still got a few days to get on that. So thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing and hitting that notification bell. Throw us a like, maybe a comment, and we will see you in the next video.